Hey folks, it's Sam here, and I'm talking about Venus in Aquarius for the next few weeks and universalizing our relationships, taking that desire for personal pleasure and happiness and universalizing it into something more transcendent and cultural in the spirit of service and things like that. So check this out. Okay, folks, so we're here today and I'm live. I'm talking about the transit of Venus through Aquarius. As you can see on the chart here, we have Venus in Aquarius, and it's something that we're going to be dealing with. I'm going to talk about this for all 12 signs as well today, because if you're, an Aries, that's going to be different than if you're a Libra, where Venus is the first and eighth house ruler going through your fifth house. So these are all different variables that I'm going to also talk about today. And as you can see on the chart here, we have Venus. This is the current chart here on February 22nd. Venus has already gone into Aquarius, went into Aquarius over the weekend. So again, you may have felt the shift the last couple of days. And so we're going to be breaking that out today. What is Venus? What is Aquarius? And whatnot. Now, I also have something I just want to let you know about this personal forecast that you can get. I'm going to put this in the chat, that many of you have gotten my 2021 Vedic Astrology forecast, where I go over these indicators, these 10 most important shifts. Many people have gotten that already, but maybe you didn't get, or you didn't realize that you can also have me talk about these 10 important shifts based on your sign. For each of the 12 signs, I actually break out all of these indicators. So, for example, if you're a Virgo person, then these 10 shifts are going to be very different for you than if you're a Cancer person, right? So the link in the description there that I just put, you can get this forecast for your sign based on the 10 most important shifts, only $19.97, or you can get all 12 of them for a huge discount, only $79, because you have a lot of people in your life. You're surrounded by Geminis and Sagittarians and Scorpions and Pisceans. And so you want to know how they're experiencing these most important shifts. For example, once we get to this eclipse in June 10th, this total eclipse, okay, maybe you're a Scorpio, so it's going to affect you a certain way, but you're surrounded by, you have a Capricorn friend, or you have a Leo friend, or boyfriend, or child. So you want to know how it's going to affect them, not just you. Or maybe you just care about you. Maybe you're just that way. You only care about yourself. No. So anyway, a lot of people wind up getting all 12, and I make it very affordable to get all 12. It's a great discount so that you can also learn and hear me explain these things from 12 different points of view. That's also really valuable. So anyway, that's something to also look at here, that you can, avail yourself of if you want. And I just put the link there in the chat box. So we're going to be talking about this today. And Venus has just gone into Aquarius. So again, realize Venus is the planet of beauty, happiness, desires. Look, I still have my wristbands on. Take my wristbands off. Okay. Playing tennis today. So this energy of wanting to enjoy life, wanting to experience happiness for ourselves, wanting to share happiness with others, all around this kind of realm of respect, mutual respect. And first, it's how appreciated and respected we feel. That's the main thing that we're focused on. And then once we feel respected, then we want to share the beauty that 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 we feel with others, and we also want to show them the same kind of respect that we want to receive ourselves. Now, this again, this is what Venus does. Venus is the karaka, or the indicator of that sort of energy, and that's a different kind of love, so to speak, than the love of the moon, for example, which is about selfless love and nurturing, like the love a mother has for her young children, or that we have for our pets or other helpless animals. They're not helpless, but they're things that we take care of and we nurture, and we give that selfless love to them, where we don't expect or ask for anything in return. That's a different kind of love that's related to the moon. Again, just nurturing and selflessness. Venus is different. And again, you want to make this distinction in your mind about your romantic relationships, especially, and other adult relationships with your friends and whatnot. And that selfless love. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't still love them selflessly. You can still love them and not want anything from them, but it's hard to have a relationship, an adult relationship, an adult interaction with someone where there's not mutual respect flowing. And that's really the currency of Venus, right? It's like the planets have a certain value and a certain currency that we exchange. And with Venus, we're exchanging value. Oh, you value this about me, I value this about you. And even if you don't like this, you at least respect me enough to not be aggressive or judgmental or harsh. So Venus is the capacity to honor another person and to value them, and hopefully value everyone, even though you don't agree with them. Again, and it's a very important thing, because one of the most problematic qualities of Venus, actually, is when we get into possessiveness. When we try to possess a certain amount of beauty or happiness, and we want to possess it, then we stop being generous. We stop being gracious. This is especially what happens in romantic relationships. After a while, again, at first in a romantic relationship, we just appreciate, and we're so happy that this other person is in our life, quote, making us feel good. They're not really making us feel good. It's just there's a feeling that's flowing. We're feeling good mainly because we appreciate it, and we're open, and the novelty of it is beautiful. But then over time, we start to get conditioned that, okay, well, this person is now going to make me feel this way. And if they don't make me feel this way, again, make me feel this way because it's mine and I deserve it, and you were making me feel that way before and now you're not. You used to do these things that made me feel good and now you don't, and blah, blah, blah. And now I possess a certain part of you, and I demand that a certain part of you make me feel the way I want to feel because you used to do it. Why aren't you doing it now? Don't you love me? Don't you care about me? Don't you appreciate me anymore? And you used to be accommodating, and you used to value and appreciate what I would do for you, and you're not doing it anymore, blah, 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 blah. This is what we wind up doing because we're trying to be possessive. We're trying to possess, and we think that we own another, that we're entitled to that person doing something for us now, quote, so to speak. And again, that's one part of it. But what we really need to remember is that all of the beauty that's flowing and all of the joy of life, because ultimately Venus is also about the joy of life and the beauty of life, we don't own any of it. So when we try to possess some of it and possess this beauty and say it's mine, then there's suffering, because then it's going to be a sensual experience one way or another, or we're going to also create a lot of duality. Well, this is beautiful, this is ugly. This makes me feel good, this doesn't. I like this, I don't like that. And we get stuck in the duality of it instead of just seeing the beauty in everything and rising to the sublime and transcendent quality of Venus, which is to find beauty in everything. To find beauty, obviously within, because that's the source of it all anyway, is that cosmic source. That's why Venus has the exaltation point in Pisces, where we're happy for it, where we're happy for no reason, because we're just dialed into the source of happiness, which is that bliss in our soul. So again, the yogis say that the soul and the self is Sat Chit Ananda. Sat, which is pure existence, Chit, which is pure wisdom, and Ananda, which is pure bliss. And that bliss of the Ananda, the Ananda part of the soul, is very much related to the Venus being elevated from pleasure, which we experience through the physical body. I can feel pleasure just on my own. I can eat some chocolate ice cream and just feel the pleasure of that. I don't need another person. I don't need anything. I can, and that's Venus through the body, pleasure. But pleasure is very limited. I can experience pleasure even in other ways, pleasure yourself or whatever, right? And I'm doing it all myself. But if I want that to become something that brings happiness, for example, eating the ice cream doesn't make me happy. It's short-term happiness, but you should see the distinction between happiness and pleasure. Pleasure is not really happiness. It can give a little bit of happiness, but it's not really happiness. It's not an emotion. It's an enjoyable, sensual experience, but happiness is something that's usually not necessarily shared with another person, but it's often something that is, it's the next level of pleasure, because there's either other people involved, and by the way, our quest for happiness is really our quest to be happy with other people. That's more the happiness part. I'm happy doing this thing with the people, and I'm sad doing that. So relationships are really, our relationships with other people are very much geared towards being happy. And again, happiness is very much of the world as well, and it's very much an emotional experience, not a sensual experience, but an emotional experience. But then, again, happiness is one level, but then there's the next level. And some people never get to the next level. We just stay stuck in trying to be happy and trying to find happiness, usually with other people. But then there's the bliss part, which is transcendent, where we're just as happy being with a person or not, where we're just as happy to see a beautiful sunset or to connect with that authentic wisdom in our heart, and things that are not just dependent or conditioned upon the outer world or other people or anything like that. So Venus is this evolutionary process of leveling and spiraling up, the upward spiral, where pleasure becomes bliss. So when Venus moves into Aquarius, again, so this evolutionary process is always happening, but then it moves into Aquarius. It's been in Capricorn, as you can see the chart here. It was here in Capricorn with all these other planets. Again, so Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. It's actually quite a good planet, a planetary ruler for Venus, because Venus and Saturn are actually quite similar. And you might think, well, why is that? Saturn is not about pleasure and happiness. It's about severity and commitment and being reasonable and practical. Yeah, that's right. That's why it's pretty beneficial for Venus, because it's better. I'll just say this, I'll just qualify it. It's better to be more realistic about what's going to make us happy or give us pleasure. I would say it's better to do that, because again, it's better to be realistic, because then it's easier for us to meet the threshold. Like when someone has Venus in Capricorn or in Aquarius, for example, they're more easily satisfied, right? Because Saturn he tends to push down the worldly expectation of something. So when Venus is there, it's a very good mixing of, being realistic and being able to enjoy things in a realistic way. So again, just use Venus as a karaka or as an indicator. One of the things that we can really learn, one of the best ways to really learn astrology or to learn the principles, is to understand when we're trying to learn about a planet, its nature as a karaka or an indicator, the things that it indicates, use that as a model. Like with Venus, as I said, it's the indicator or the karaka of relationships, all of our relationships with other people. But you could say the romantic relationships is a good one to really look at. Do your relationships, especially your romantic relationships, really benefit when you're humble, when you're realistic, when you appreciate what you get, because you might not get much, so anything that you get, you appreciate it? Hell yeah. That really makes for a good partner or a good relationship, when we're not demanding, no, I deserve this, and we're all fired up about what we deserve. Again, when Venus gets into fiery signs, sometimes watery signs, even though it's exalted in Pisces, but it can be too emotional and ungrounded and not practical, not humble. So again, relationships work really well when we're grounded, when we're realistic, when we appreciate what the other person does and we express it, when we don't take for granted, oh, you're just going to be there making me happy, and if you're not, you're doing something to me, you're doing something wrong because I deserve. Again, all of that is a lot of that fired up entitlement. Again, Saturn, so when Venus is in Saturn's signs, that's not what's going on. It's much more down to earth. And so that's quite conducive for what Venus is trying to do and trying to bring out. So since Venus went into Capricorn, which was earlier this year, about a month or so ago, like around the middle end of January. Let's go back and look exactly when it was. So yeah, it was in the middle of January week. The end of January, like January 27th or so. So since then, Venus has been in Capricorn, of course, but it's joined all these other planets. But then again, it just moved on the 20th. It moved into Aquarius. So that's where we have it. And Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, but it's the masculine quality of Saturn. So it's not the internal psychological part of Saturn where we're sort of committed and concentrating internally on humbling ourselves and going deeper into the into, like, let's say, our problems or our issues and kind of working through them internally. Aquarius is the external nature of Saturn, where we then express that externally in the world of society and culture. And again, Aquarius is an air sign. It's fixed air, where we're trying to stabilize our connections with each other, transcend the personal toward the collective. So again, it's more about collective joy and beauty, which definitely, first of all, takes the form of service to something higher, service to even a relationship paradigm that is not so personal. One second. Still a little thirsty. It's really hot here in San Diego. Had a nice tennis match today. I'm still a little thirsty. So in Aquarius, we're looking to make a commitment to the collective ideas, the collective identity, because we live in a culture where it's not just about my ideas. So again, Aquarius is an air sign. It's fixed air, and it's ruled by Saturn. So again, it's the collective ideas, the culture. So Aquarius is very much related to the citizens of a country, the countries of the world, larger transcendent themes and ideas that we're collectively experiencing, right? So Venus has a lot to do now with looking to serve a higher collective identity. We just had, and someone mentioned this, Jorge just mentioned, how does traveling to Mars would influence a chart if it were possible for that person? All right, well, I'm not going to answer Mars. What I'm going to talk about, though, is that we just went to Mars. So So we now have this rover on Mars. So again, it's a very collective thing that we're kind of now experiencing together and watching the great technology. By the way, Aquarius has a lot to do with technology. Again, because it pushes things into the future. Technology and the sciences and whatnot are things that we all experience collectively, because science and technology, we all benefit from it or not, but it's also an aggregate of decades of other people that came before us. The sciences are things that are built upon the scientists of the past. Again, the fact that we're sitting here now and you're sitting in your room watching me, all this technology that we use now is a product of all the technology that came before, all the scientists who came before, all the way back to like Galileo and Sir Isaac Newton and the scientists of the Renaissance and medieval ages, and now quantum physics and of the 20th century, all of this. So technology is related to Aquarius in this way, because we build upon the previous ideas. Again, building ideas. Saturn and ideas, which is air. This is how Aquarius, maybe more than any other sign, all the air signs, Aquarius and Gemini, probably the most signs of the most technological advancements and focus on technology, those two. And so you can see why Aquarius is really about how technology builds upon itself for the betterment of all of us, hopefully for the betterment, sometimes to the detriment. And we start technologies like, let's say, nuclear power or other kinds of things, and we don't know the implications of the technologies yet. Again, we can see right now that we have, all of the, there's a sort of collective, desire to really, transcend a lot of the issues and problems that we have right now in the world, because all these planets are about to move through Aquarius. Again, I started talking about this last year when Saturn went into Capricorn. I said for the next 5 years or so, 5 or 6 years, we're going to be going through a whole sort of technological revolution, first around our money and resources and values, including our relationship with the earth and our food and all this stuff, which is happening a year later. Look at that. And then again, in a couple years, when Saturn goes through Aquarius, it's going to be even more technologically heavy, and some dangers, especially the dangers of AI and all of these other things where we're letting the genie out of the bottle. But I'm just giving you an idea to understand what Aquarius is about, why it's this facet of life. And Venus going through Aquarius is showing it's bringing that desire for beauty, enjoyment, happiness, pleasure into this transcendent, this universal, this collective realm, where the person will find, like when someone has their Venus in Aquarius, like say in the natal chart or whatnot, they're often even their own approach to their own personal happiness and pleasure or relationships are often seen in a more universal way. Many times they feel more comfortable having a relationship with a collective than they might with a person, with an individual. Because again, Aquarius it feels the pressure of Saturn to do something for the collective, something that's going to advance humanity. Again, rather than just me and what I want, my personal desires, it's about what's good for the collective. So when you see that in a natal chart, then that's going to be the nature. Someone asked about Venus return in the natal chart. It's just a principle. When it returns, it's returning back to what's your energy. So it usually feels natural to the person. So again, it's a simple principle that you should always remember in all examples. It's just a return. It's a recurrence. Just like a solar return, the sun comes back to where it was when you were born, and that energy feels like your energy. So usually recurrences are very positive because it's returning our energy at that time. When it goes back to where it was when we were born, we feel, this is my Venus. This, because that's how it feels in the person. Even when it's something that might be, quote, difficult, which this one isn't, but even if it's, there's always what if it's a debilitated planet coming back? Is that bad? It's usually, again, we want to oversimplify things, but in general, returns feel natural to us. Even when it's a difficult planet, like Jupiter is in Capricorn right now. Okay? People who were born when Jupiter was in Capricorn, it's a return to that part of their nature. Now, again, usually when things feel natural to us, it's usually quite empowering, at least to make positive change, even if it's something that has some difficulty. So that's just a universal principle. In this case, again, Venus in Aquarius is in the sign of a friend. It's naturally friendly. And again, you can see why when I explained how Venus is in relation to Saturn, the ruler of both Capricorn and Aquarius, you can see why that would be pretty conducive. Because again, Venus is where we're trying to experience joy, pleasure, happiness, and elevate that. And elevate it through a sense of fairness. Because you see, the reason we suffer with Venus areas in life is when we're not able to compromise. You see, this is the problem with that we feel with when Venus is weak or compromised. Then that thing that we're trying to do, which is please another person equal to ourself and not take from them in order to please ourself, because then it gets unbalanced and then we suffer. Because Venus is the part of us that wants to enjoy doing that. We like doing that. We want to see the other person as happy as we are, and we want to give and not feel like in giving we're being deprived. Not feel like that, well, when I give to you, I always feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick. So now I don't even want to give. See, this is what feels bad with Venus. We don't want that part of it. We want to enjoy giving because that's our nature. And when Venus gets upset, problems to Venus in the natal chart means the person doesn't enjoy that. They have a hard time enjoying that giving because because of their boundaries, because they can't identify what really makes them happy. First of all, this is one of the reasons is they're confused about what they really want and what really makes them happy. So they'll kind of accept anything because they're afraid they're not going to get it. So they'll kind of accept it, but then they don't really like it. So then they don't want to give it because they're taking it because what they're giving isn't being appreciated either. It's just the whole equation of values and what we value and what feels good gets distorted. It gets distorted around a lot of projections or other kinds of things, a lot of demands. It becomes too sensual or passionate. And the whole free exchange of harmony between you get this, I get that, gets disrupted. And they start to take because they're afraid they're not going to get what they want, so they try to take it. And then they don't want to give it, and right, it gets all... So, again, when Venus is in Saturn signs, there's that humility. We're more humbled, we're more appreciative, we're more grounded. And in Aquarius is an air sign. Again, Venus rules an air sign as well. Venus is actually very flexible and light. It's not demanding. It's not possessive. It's appreciative. It's grounded. It's flexible. It's allowing things to exist freely. Like, okay, you can do that. It's okay. You can have it. I can live without it. Even if it makes me sad, it's okay. I can enjoy your happiness even if I don't get anything back. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it forever, but I'm not all twisted up over it. Right? And so when Venus is in Aquarius, you can see why it's much more of we enjoy seeing everyone benefit, right? Because that's what Aquarius is. It's like we want to see the world harmoniously. We want to see people and culture being kind and harmoniously interacting with each other and whatnot. So I see my student Amy Eager here is saying this is why it's easier to deal with humanity and the collective. For someone with Venus in Aquarius, often, yes, it's harder to deal with individuals easier to deal with the collective. And by the way, I also know, because Amy and I, we talk about this, and she's a big advocate for like animal rights and things like that. This is these humanitarian causes. And of course, Venus is very much about all creatures and animals not suffering, not perpetrating that kind of suffering, and wanting to see that. Again, these are the kinds of things. This is why someone can become great humanitarians with Venus in Aquarius, because again, Venus is where we want to see all beings appreciated. It's not just people, animals, sentient beings. We don't want to see pain, torture, suffering. Venus is the part of us. Venus and the moon are the part of us, and also Mercury, Jupiter. I mean, a lot of planets, but Venus is the one that is most actively and proactively trying to make everything, look, let's be peaceful. Let's not kill animals. Or is there any way we can not do that? Is there any way? Because I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. Is there any way we can not do that? That comes from Venus. So in Aquarius, again, you can see how it's very naturally oriented towards wanting the collective to get along, to not fight, to not battle. And so, again, these are big, these are big themes that gives you an idea of what Venus in Aquarius means. So again, it can elevate relationships to something that's more universal and transcendent. And again, people, not just people who have it in their chart, but in general, when Venus goes through Aquarius, it's a time for our relationships, for example, to be more focused on something higher, because we might, the experience of each other and just trying to make each other happy, which is usually what relationships are, might feel a little less, happy. We might get turned on a little less by that, because Venus is, looking for something higher. So again, shared values that you have with your partner, which hopefully you have some shared values and philosophies and teachings. Venus in Aquarius, it's a great time for you as a couple to bond through some collective work that you both agree with. Let's say you're both animal rights advocates, or you're both, yogis, or anything that's advancing humanity, advancing causes that you share as a couple. Get out there and do them. Or even, let's say you're not in a relationship. Let's say you want to be in one. Well, Venus in Aquarius is a great time to get out and start serving causes anyway. You might meet someone. You might meet someone who shares a worldview that you have, which is actually a great way to meet people. Better than dating sites and apps and stuff where you have nothing in common. One of the best things to do is to get out and start living your life and doing the things and advocating for the world you want to see. Well, guess what? You're going to meet people that are doing the same things, that are interested in the same things you are. It's a good place to start. People are always asking, where am I going to meet people? I'm like, well, where are you trying to meet them? Well, I'm this app and this service. I'm like, those are like the worst places. The only thing worse are like bars. The second worst are like those apps and stuff. Some of them are better because you can filter through interests and whatnot. But the best places, as we all know, is to get out and do things. And I'll do readings and I'll ask people, well, now we're dealing with COVID and whatnot, but even before, people don't even go out. They don't go out to like yoga classes or community. They don't do anything. They just sit home and then they get on these apps. That's the worst way to meet people. So again, talking about this because of Venus. Venus is about, again, wanting to experience that beauty and pleasure and happiness, including sex and all that. Well, in Aquarius, we're out there spreading the love and the joy in the world in the way we want to see it. And of course, we meet people then. So these are also things that, hang on a second. All right, someone just left the building. Someone was here. You saw him talking about I hate astrology or something. I just removed him. See, he was violating the Venus in Aquarius, right? My Venus in Aquarius said, get this guy out of here. So that's part of it too, is like, I don't want everybody distracted by a troll. So I got rid of him. But again, Venus will say, okay, you go play somewhere else. So again, this is big lessons for the next couple, for the next month or so. And it's actually until Venus Someone said, thanks for removing the haters. Yeah, I don't, it requires a dual focus that I don't usually like to, that I don't always do. But so again, Venus is in Aquarius until March 16th. Then it goes into Pisces where it's exalted. So these are some really good Venus transits for the next few months until like April, until early April. Venus is in Aquarius, then it goes into Pisces. So again, very much about finding your collective tribe and, you know, putting it out there. And then Venus goes into Pisces, which is, you know, exalted and about finding that sort of bliss and happiness for no reason, where we're just really dialed into something transcendent. Hang on a second. I just put in the chat again, this, as you see, most people have gotten the 2021 forecast where I go over these 10 shifts. And as you can see, we're only here right now. There's a lot more to go over. If you haven't done that, you can do that as well. 2021vedicastrology.com. But then you can also get the forecast where I talk about all of these things through each of the 12 signs. So through each of the 12 signs, you can understand how these things will impact you. Again, because if you're a Virgo, then that's different than if you're Taurus. You're going to experience these things very differently. If you're Taurus, then when Venus goes into Pisces in early March, if you're Taurus, that's your first and sixth lord in the 11th house. That's very different than if you're Virgo, where it's your second and ninth lord in the 7th house. Or if you're a Aquarius, where it's your fourth and ninth lord in the 2nd house. See how fast I do that? Because it's built into my brain. I got it built into my brain. This is the way you need to learn and understand astrology, is these rulerships are built into your brain, where you just pull it right out very easily because you see the zodiac in this three-dimensional way. And when you see every sign in every place like that, your level of comprehension is so much deeper. And I'm going to talk about that right now when I talk about Venus in all 12 signs, Venus in Aquarius for all 12 signs. And so this is, just looking at a few things here. All right, so Sandy said, forecast was awesome. I ordered all 12 as well so that I can better understand holistically. Thank you, Sandy, for saying that. A lot of people have gotten them. And yeah, the other reason to really look at and to get all 12, again, I make it really affordable. This is about a 20-minute recording, 15 to 20 minutes, only $20. And it's just me straight out interpreting all of those things. But then I make it so that you can get all 12 for less than the cost of getting 4. I mean, it's a really low price. I do that because obviously I want people to get all of them. I want you to get all of them because you have people in your life that are different. And this is from the ascendant, right? That are different, have different signs than you. So again, like I said, when we're going through this Mercury retrograde, which is going to be really big, this Mercury retrograde cycle that starts April 30th to July 25th, that's almost 3 months of Mercury going back and forth in Gemini and Taurus. This is a huge thing. He's going to be just going back and forth, putting a huge emphasis on these two signs. Within that, there's also going to be an eclipse. Again, so this whole time right here, this is a huge chunk of what's going to be happening in the summer. Again, you look and see April 3rd to July 25th, and then there's an eclipse in the middle of it. A lot of the summer is going to be dominated by this, and also Jupiter retrograde. So again, you can see how the summer is going to be dominated by these kind of things. And I'm saying it right now. These are the things this summer that are going to be huge. Again, you see this spring is really dominated by the Venus and the Jupiter in Aquarius. But it's not just you. It's not just your sign. You got people around you who have different signs. You know, you have someone who's a Cancer. You want to see from a Cancer point of view, this is happening in their 10th and 11th houses. That eclipse is in their 11th house. It's totally different than the way you would be experiencing it. And, this Jupiter retrograde happening from their 8th house to their 7th house. Again, it's like totally different. If someone in your life is a Sagittarius, then these things are also totally different, happening between their 6th and 7th houses, right? The eclipse is in the 6th house. This reflecting on the teachings, it's their ruling planet in the 2nd and 3rd house. So again, all of these things, if you want to get all 12 forecasts, again, it's not that much. All these people in your life, as these inflection points happen this year, you can go listen to it and understand why this, why the crazy Gemini in your life is like acting that way. Well, because this is their emphasis, and you understand your emphasis and you understand theirs. So again, I don't know what I'd do without astrology for all the people in my life. So it's really beneficial that way. So I make it affordable so that people can also learn. Like Sandy said, it's a great way to also better understand, because you get to hear me explain the same transits from completely different points of view. So you also get an understanding of how, when people try to make astrology something too simple, it doesn't work. You can't just say, well, what's that? What does Jupiter here mean? I don't know. I don't know what the ascendant is. I don't know a lot of other things. So this is, very, very, important to understand. So let me take a drink, and then I'll talk about this Venus in Aquarius for all 12 signs. It looks like I'm drinking blood. I got beet juice in here. It's really good. Hey. Beet, lemon, celery. All right. So Golden Crowley laughed at something. Don't know what, but I'll trust it. I'll trust I made a funny. Okay. So we'll start with Aries, and then we'll go through the 12 signs. So for Aries, Venus is the 2nd and 12th house. I'm sorry, the 2nd and 7th house ruler, and it's going through your 11th house, right? So for you, Aries, this transit of Venus through Aquarius until, when is it again? Yeah, until March 16th. I thought that was the date. So this transit of Venus through Aquarius until March 16th, for you, Aries, it's very much about the value that you get in your partners and your relationships, again, being much more universalized. Again, it's great for sharing these themes and qualities with your partner and finding things that you and your partner can do collectively. Or, as I said earlier, if you're not in a partnership and you want to be in one, get out there and start making the world a better place and look around and see who you meet, because it's a really good time to be engaged in the world proactively and meeting people as a result. And for you, Aries, because Venus is your 7th house ruler, it's a double indicator of that. Taurus, Venus is your 1st house and your 6th house ruler, and it's in your 10th house. Again, 10th house is about work. So you can really find this collective inspiration now in your work and be very focused and concentrated and committed to it, which is what you want to be because you're Taurus. And you're always willing to work hard for something because Venus also rules your 6th house, as long as it's something that brings you joy, pleasure, happiness. And especially, again, if you can share that with the world, the things that you personally enjoy and find pleasure in and happiness in, it's a great time to really share it with the world and build up your, and enhance your reputation and whatnot. Very conducive for that. Gemini, Venus, very powerful planet for you. It's your 5th and 12th house ruler. So, this is a very creative planet, very creative. And also that sort of hidden creativity where you go off by yourself and you enjoy creating things and investigating things. So again, this is in your 9th house. So the 9th house is about teaching, gurus, higher wisdom. So again, if you're a teacher, this is a great time to be teaching, to be putting it out there. You'll feel very inspired to do that. But it's also a time to learn more and to be inspired. So really, Gemini, it's an excellent transit. Venus is a powerful benefic for you. So again, it really shows where the things that inspire you creatively can be shared on a mass scale, and also where you'll find newfound inspiration in your teachings and teachers. And for Cancer, Venus is the 4th and 11th house ruler, 4th house, 11th house, and it's going through your 8th house. So Venus is a trickier planet for you, Cancer. It kind of brings up that difference between the selfless love and the conditional love that I talked about at the beginning. You're easier with the selfless love, and the conditional love you have a little harder time with often. But Venus does bring you this desire for a beautiful home, for a beautiful emotion, internal and emotional life, and a spirit of service, because it also rules your 11th house. Going through the 8th house, though, again, it's about more of a transformational time where you're really you'll be very rewarded by embracing those insecurities and fears and those things that you can't control, and just letting them play out. And again, particularly in the spirit of service, because Venus is also your 11th house ruler. So again, I would also say that this is a very good transit for meditation, but again, it could be after some deep transformational work. The first response here is often where you can feel kind of vulnerable. But going deeper into that, Cancer, can be very rewarding, and it's more of a time for introspection and investigation and inquiry. 8th house things. For Leo, this is your 3rd and 10th house ruler in your 7th. So again, 10th house is very much about career. 3rd house is a sense of purpose and willfulness, Leo. It shows why you're very driven and bring a lot of your creativity and ego into your career. And it's going through your 7th house. So again, this is also just very obviously a relationship transit. But again, it's also a lot of desires. Venus is a high desire planet. It's the 3rd house ruler, which is also ego, desire, stimulation, conquest. So again, it can definitely show where you get engaged with other people, especially maybe in a way that is more sexual and more power driven. But it can certainly bring that. I would say to be aware and to be careful not to be, not to be domineering at this time, because you might have the opportunity to do that. And instead, again, Aquarius is about the community, not your individual power. You as the king have a kingdom and a world, and elevate that nature of Venus and the benefit that you may get from it into something that's more collective, and you'll wind up feeling much better about it ultimately. And that will also be a greater boon to your career and to your work, seeking a higher purpose and higher ground with it. So for Virgo, Venus is a functional benefic as well, very beneficial planet. It's the 2nd house and 9th house ruler, Virgo, which shows how your values are very aligned with pure teachings and inspiration. And it's going through your 6th house, which is going to require some service and effort and hard work. Again, this is more of a tricky placement, because the 6th house shows effort, might show even a little hardship that you need to overcome. But again, because Venus is a very dharmic planet and a gentle planet for you, it can show a lot of healing and creative healing, particularly through devotion and your teachings and your daily practices. Venus as your 2nd and 9th lord shows how your habits and routines and values are strong. So going through the 6th house, it might test them a little bit, but ultimately also strengthen them. Okay? But it's going to require some service and some being humble. But you're good at that. So Libra, this is the 1st and the 8th house ruler in your 5th house. So this is another very, creative transit. Again, because Venus is your ruling planet, Libra, and it's going through your 5th house of your heart's desire, your creativity, your creative passion. You may find a lot of opportunities to step up and contribute and teach. Again, 5th house is about teaching and learning. So in that sense, could be very beneficial. And again, Venus is also your 8th house ruler. So at best, Libra, you're someone who is changing dynamically in your life and investigating deeper ways of seeing things and transforming naturally as a result. So again, you could find great benefit right now with the 1st and 8th house ruler going through the 5th, showing where you're, spreading those creative gifts with the world. Because again, this is Aquarius, right? And so it could be a very beneficial time for you, Libra, to share your gifts and find new inspirations and new hidden talents that you didn't know you had. And Scorpio, this is your 7th and 12th house ruler going through the 4th house. Now, for you, Scorpio, Venus is a tricky planet in that it's a lot to do with your passions and your desires, but also it rules your 12th house, where you can sort of be confused about how to engage with others. At times, there's a lot of hidden agendas or things that you're, again, secrets and other kinds of things, suspicions. And again, it can show your uneasy relationship with others at times, Scorpio. But in general, this transit going through the 4th house shows the need to really be introspective with it to some extent, and can really nurture your heart. Venus has a lot of directional strength here, the 4th house, meaning that when it's in the 4th house or near the 4th house, it's pulling us inward. So in this case, it's really pulling you more inward, Scorpio, to find that devotional space. And Venus is a very devotional planet for you ultimately. Again, when you get stuck in the desires of the world and what you want from other people, Venus can be very confusing. But when you surrender and relax into a more devotional space, because Venus also rules the 12th house, it can bring a lot of, again, joy, devotion, and not as much of the frustration and negative qualities of Venus, the jealousies or the other kinds of, triggers. So going through the 4th is really pulling you inward. So notice that, Scorpio. Sagittarius, Venus is this, it's the 6th and 11th house ruler, and it's a functional malefic. It shows more than anything like a distracting quality, where you can get distracted. And also ambition, and again, things where you can be overstimulated and somewhat, and then sort of create enemies and difficulty. Going through your 3rd house, again, that's also a house of ego, of stimulation. This is one of the things you need to be careful of here, Sagittarius. Again, it's better to focus on themes and issues that are more transcendent, cultural, and whatnot, but it can be a very stimulated transit, especially the 11th Lord in the 3rd. 3rd house is about our desires that we want to fulfill for ourselves, personal desires. 11th house is collective desires. Again, if you're transcending and you're trying to elevate them beyond just, again, personal desires would mean like wanting something from another person, like sex or money or some kind of getting in some kind of battle or struggle. It could be quite an ego struggle here. Again, even though it's Venus, it's the 6th house ruler of battles, 11th house ruler of ambition, and it shows, Sagittarius, where you can get into struggles over things that are like, gossipy and worldly, and waste your time in those kinds of pursuits. Instead, elevate that to something that's more universal and causal, more cause-driven, not so personal and desire and egoistic, Sagittarius. Capricorn, this is a pretty favorable transit as well, because Venus is a functional benefic, your 5th and 10th house ruler, and it's going through your 2nd house. So again, Venus is probably the most creative planet for you, Capricorn. 5th house of our heart's desire and creativity, and the 10th house ruler of work and impact. This is why, Capricorn, you love your work. You love putting things out there and committing to things that bring about beauty and that bring people together. You love it because Venus rules your 5th house of creativity and your 10th house of impact and work. So Venus is a very fulfilling planet for you. Going through the second house. Second house is what? Money, values. So for you, Capricorn, this could be a very positive transit, especially because, again, Venus is a planet already that's looking to do something better in the world. That's the way you experience it, because it's your fifth house ruler of your heart's desire and children, and the 10th house ruler of impact in the world. So because you have such a dharmic relationship with Venus anyway, when it goes through the second house here, it'll just enhance that and elevate it more into the public sphere. So again, you can see how these functional, benefic, and malefic planets work. They naturally align when you start to break down each ascendant this way with each planet because of the rulerships. So for you, Capricorn, it's a very powerful, positive transit. It could be enhancing your money, your values, and growing your tribe, because our tribe is also the second house. It's our comfort zone and the people we have around us, the family we create based on our values. All of that can be enhanced now, Capricorn. Aquarius, again, Venus is a very dharmic planet. It rules the fourth house and the ninth house. Shows where your teachings and your inspirations are inculcated in your heart. You feel it deep in your heart. You feel this inspiring heart, this sense of beauty, Venus, that comes in your heart, fourth house, through these higher teachings. This is why, Aquarius, you're so devotional. You're so devoted. But you're actually very devoted to ideas, and the ideas that are going to advance humanity. All of that devotion and joy and desire for beauty comes from Venus. And it's pure in your heart. Your heart is pure with that. That's your pure nature. You got to be careful of Mars, though, Aquarius. Because Mars then wants to fight for it, and you can get away from that emotional purity in your heart. But of course, Venus now in your first house is bringing all of that purity, connection, devotion right into your field. It's now, when it goes in the first house, it's like the power is there. It's empowering you. So those with a Aquarius rising, now you're getting empowered by that energy, by that power of your teachings, ninth lord, and that beauty in your heart, fourth lord. So this is how the transit works for you, Aquarius. Venus, the fourth and ninth lord, in the first is saying, okay, now use me to make the world a more beautiful place. And you like using Venus. It's your deeper nature. And then finally, Pisces, again, even though Venus is exalted in Pisces, it's a tricky planet. It is, because it's the third and the eighth house ruler. And so for you, Pisces, Venus is the third and eighth house ruler going through the 12th. Now, again, this forms what you would call a Viparit Raja Yoga by transit, because it's the eighth lord and the 12th by transit. So it's really showing more of an introspection. But it's also, showing the need to be proactive, because Venus does rule the third house. Find new and interesting ways of doing things, but internally, which means with your spiritual practices and with your meditations and things like that, which are 12th house, having more courage to explore those things a little more right now, and also looking for ways to understand your teachings and sort of tweak them a little bit. Not, if you're not doing any of this kind of work, which many people aren't, then it's showing the need to have courage to do more inner work now, because that's what the 12th house is. And to bring that beauty and that kind of wispy promise of life being beautiful, which is how Venus can be distracting to you, Pisces. Venus distracts you because it's like, oh, but the world is so beautiful. And you're actually trying to transcend, and Venus is pulling you down into the world. So instead of having that be just this kind of fantasy where you kind of tune out and watch Netflix for a month, you want to tune in to the authentic beauty in your heart for the next couple weeks, and surrender, letting go of all the desires, letting go of the of all of the of those things that you want from the world. Again, this is how Venus can mess you up a little bit. You get stuck in the attachments, the third house and ruler, and also the eighth house, where it feels painful and you can't control it. you get distracted. So surrender, relax into the beauty of the bliss of the soul, the bliss of Venus, not the pleasure or the happiness of Venus. So folks, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this. And again, like, subscribe, share the video. If it's something that you enjoyed, share it with others. I always forget to say this. It is important because then when people participate like that, the video, then more people watch it. Also share it on your social media and all that stuff. And I hope you have a good day today, and that your experience of Venus through Aquarius is all that it can be.